Yo, what up YouTube? I'm here to show you a video on how to sand a head. I've got an outboard 35 horsepower Johnson motor here. Took out and actually my brother who owns a shop, a machine shop, is the one who told me about this. He said, when you bring your outboard to a machinist, he's going to probably charge you close to the same as, if not the same, as a regular car motor, because the setup time is going to take the same amount of time. So, long story short, he showed me a quick trick that he actually used. A machinist, might I add, uses, actually recommends to use. He has his own tools he uses now, but anyways, here's what he said to buy. He says, get some plexiglass, and underneath of your plexiglass, get an old piece of a countertop. And with your countertop, you're going to want to check it with a straight edge to make sure that everything's nice and true. Get a feeler gauges. You don't want anything any more than 2/1000ths of an inch to fit underneath that. So, and then you're going to go ahead and get some spray adhesive and spray your glue onto your 80 grit sandpaper on that. I recommend just craft paper spray glue. And once you do that, you're going to go ahead and take your head. I'm actually going to do this side as well because this is warped pretty bad. You can see how pitted it is. Rusted and corroded. And I'm going to do before and after. And then I'll go ahead and start sanding it down on there and show you some after results. Here's just a quick example. Now, what I'm going to recommend you do is go at a 45 continuously. And do this until you get enough grooves in there. You want to get the grooves to start going. So just start going back and forth, ensuring that you're staying on the sandpaper. And once you get enough of the aluminum sanded off, you're just going to go ahead and take a look at your progress. You can see all the aluminum shavings that came off. Now you see we're getting the lines there going all in one direction. So the goal here, and you can see we still have quite a ways to go. The goal here is to get those lines going in one direction and then change your direction to continue sanding it nice and even. Now, it's extremely important. So as you sand, you're going to have a buildup. And all this aluminum here, see that? Now we're getting cross-hatching. So, and at the very end, once you actually get all this pitting out, now I'm using 80 grit for the beginning. Afterwards, you're going to want to work up to about 120. You're going to want a semi-rough surface. The last thing you're going to want to do, give it a good circular motion, because you're going to want to have an orbital pattern. It's not that important right now because I'm still in the rough sanding stage, but you're going to want to have an orbital pattern on your blockhead. Of course, when this is all sanded down better, you can see it's getting nice and rough there. Soon this will all be done just like it's milled. Anyhow, very important, if you don't clean up the aluminum that's being left behind, it's important that you have a vacuum with a little brush attachment. Because what's happening is all this aluminum shavings, all of this here, is acting as little ball bearings. So your head's actually not going to be sanding, you're going to be wasting so much time. So it's imperative that you get this vacuum and vacuum up all these aluminum shavings. There you go. Once you do that, start the process over and I'll show you an after shortly. Alright, now I'm just getting wrapped up here with the final sanding. It took me about 10 minutes to do this, and I had to vacuum this off probably about 3 times. So now I've completed using my 80 grit, and from here you're going to want to switch over to 100 or 120 It's up to you if you want to step it up, do it in stages. But I usually just jump right up to 120 and then just take a little bit more time sanding it. So as you can see, the surface is definitely a lot better here. I still got a couple little areas here, but those are extremely pitted areas that won't come down. When I put my gauge on here, there's no light coming through here at all. My feeler gauge, I put it in there, and I have 2 1/1000ths of an inch coming through, which is actually really good for that. Now you could do the same thing with the block. You can just set the block on there and start sanding away. Now keep in mind, this is a little time consuming. Like I said, for me personally, I take my engines to a shop, but I have done dozens of blocks and heads this method and have never had any problem. Had extremely good compression, and the motors ran fine without a problem. So from here, you're going to switch 80 grit to 100 or 120, and then start sanding away, and then you're done. And you have a nice clean head there. Now this motor in particular was pitted really bad because it was a 35 horsepower outboard that was never flushed in the salt water. Now this method is not limited to motors. So I took this. This is another part where the water channel goes, and you can see where the pits are. But this was completely horrendous, and now once this goes on the 120 grit, it's going to be fine. So there's some pretty deep pits there, but the overall seal is going to be effective. So there you go. And like I said, it's very important that you vacuum all these aluminum shavings up as you go along, and you'll be good to go. So like I said, I've done this hole. This was completely black when I started, as was this. So now I cut out enough of the highs to get a good seal. There's still going to be a couple pits in there just because it's like I said, this motor is actually from 1982 and it's been rebuilt twice. So you can only shave these down so much to tolerance. So there you go. Get yourself some sandpaper. Get yourself an old piece of countertop. Now when I measured this countertop, it was about 3 1/1000ths of an inch coming through my feeler gauge. So at that time, I just opted to get some plexiglass. Actually, a really thick mirror would do better, but plexiglass is fine. So when I put that on there, I couldn't even get 1 1/1000th of an inch to go through. So this plexiglass definitely gave me a nice flat surface. Glue this down, let it dry for 4 hours or so, and then just whale away. Clamp it down so your piece isn't sliding on you, and just go away. Like I said, this is for someone who's on a budget, who doesn't have the money but does have the time to do this. Personally, I think it's a lot of labor involved, and by the time you add in buying the sandpaper and everything else, and your time, depending on what your opportunity cost is, it might just be better for you to go to the shop and then proceed on working on another part of the motor that you can do. But if you want to do this, it's fun. I do it as a hobby. I just rebuild motors, and I've never had any problem. I've done dozens of these, and so it's a really great method. And good luck in rebuilding your motor.